Welcome to the Feel Great with Kait podcast, where you'll learn how to master your health to achieve more in life. I'm your host, Kaitlin Borncamp, a CPA turned nutritional therapy practitioner. Together, we'll be unpacking powerful forces that are shaping your daily habits, providing effective ways to account for your health with practical strategies, and uncovering powerful insights to why your metabolic health is the key to fuel your energy, longevity, and success. My mission is to help more high achievers like you stop trading your health for your wealth. Let's dive in. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another awesome episode of the Feel Great with Kait podcast. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about 5 reasons why exercise is so good for you and the things that have nothing to do with weight loss or getting lean, because I know part of my journey was around so focused on what I looked like in the mirror, so focused on burning calories, which I'll tell you a little bit more about, that I honestly kind of missed the whole purpose of exercise some days, which is that it's really good for our underlying health. It's really good to help us focus. It's really good for longevity and so many other great things that often really just go unlooked or unnoticed. And so I want to point some of those out to you, because if you're like me, you might be missing the point, and that's totally okay. So let me kind of, set the stage with you and, kind of share a little bit of a personal story about, this was maybe 5 or 10 years ago now. I was working with a personal trainer I had found, and she was somebody who did bodybuilding training. So if you're not familiar, what that means is somebody who will help you prepare and compete in a bodybuilding competition or like a fitness competition on stage. And while I actually didn't want to compete with that, I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to look like that. And so I had found this awesome trainer basically to get my ass in shape, right? And we were in one of our coaching sessions, and I'll never forget, because she looked at me and we were talking about cardio versus resistance training. And she was like, Kaitlin, why do we do cardio? And without a second of a hesitation, I just simply said, to burn calories, right? There's simply no other reason to do cardio other than to burn calories. At least that's what I had thought at the time, because this was after so many years of counting all the calories I ate, counting all the calories I burned, and really only giving value to doing cardio simply because it increased the rate of me burning calories. Like, raise your hand if you can relate, right? And for those of you who don't know, I'm also CPA, and if you're in the public accounting or finance field, think about this like a T account in, a financial statement. That's how my brain was working in terms of calories in, calories out. I was always having this like running T account of what I was eating versus what I was burning. And it became so unhealthy. I mean, those of you who know my personal story know that I overcame an eating disorder, but then I quickly went into disordered eating. And I find that a lot of other high achievers, high performing professionals, especially in the public accounting and CPA lawyer space, can be in the same space, same place, because I think there's something to it within our personality that we are so driven, and we like to know the numbers, and we like to, we just feel good with like that level of structure. But honestly, when it comes to our health, sometimes too much tracking, sometimes too much structure isn't always good for us, isn't always healthy. So this episode, again, is for you if you're somebody where I was 5 to 10 years ago, where you're focused just on calories in, calories out. Maybe you're a busy professional and you just simply feel like you're too busy to even move at your desk because you're in all day meetings and emails. I hear that one a lot from my clients. Or really just anyone who wants more motivation to move your body because you know that you should be doing it, but you can't always bring yourself to be doing it. So you're looking for some extra motivation, because I'm a huge believer in that we are a product of, the things that we surround ourselves with. And in today's digital era, we have the luxury that, it doesn't have to just be the 5 physical people we spend the most time with. We can fill that with something like this podcast, something like books, something like other information that will help motivate you to your goals. So if one of your goals is to move more, which I frankly think if you have any sort of job in today's era, which is all of us, you need to be moving more, because we're simply just so sedentary. So I'm going to be sharing with you 5 reasons why exercise and movement are good for your underlying health. And again, they have nothing to do with counting calories and nothing to do with losing weight. So I hope you get a lot of value out of today's episode. And also, too, after that, I can share with you 3 super easy movements that you can do anywhere, whether it's at your home office or at your client site. Okay, so that way you're prepared to take immediate action, which is what I love. All right, so let's get into it. So reason number 1 why exercise is so good for you is it increases blood flow. And what this can help with is better nutrient delivery, better oxygen delivery to your underlying cells. So we oftentimes don't really think about this. We kind of just take it for granted. We're like, oh, our heart pumps our blood and everything is just like a constant. But that's actually not true whatsoever. So a lot of tissues and other fluids in our body rely on our physical movement to move around. And even if our heart is part of the equation with the blood flow, it's definitely not all of it in terms of lymph flow and other things, other systems that are within our body. And so when we're so stagnant, literally just sitting at our desk, I'm sitting right now speaking to you, recording this podcast, and we just get into these productive states, right, where it's like, this is why it's such a hard one of the reasons why it's so hard to be healthy in today's modern world is because what is demanding of us is good for our brain. Like sitting and focusing on a screen is not the same thing that's good for our body, the rest of our body, like the movement, things like that. And what can happen is, again, we become stagnant. Our body is not able to process or heal, the fluid, the movement, the cellular turnover, things like that. And so when you're able to increase your movement, and when I'm talking about too, I should preface, when I'm saying movement or exercise, I don't just mean 60-minute workout or 90-minute workout in the gym. I mean any type of movement, right? Anytime you're walking, you're doing, I'll kind of table that thought. We'll come back to some exercises that you can do. But just know that when we're talking about exercise, we mean more than just the gym workouts, okay? So back to reason number one around increasing blood flow and oxygen and nutrient delivery. So this will help to reduce things like inflammation. It'll also help with cellular healing and repair. So one thing I like to think about this in the context of busy professionals, especially, some of the executives I work with, is that oftentimes we're really good at dialing in our exercise routine. So maybe, like as was the case with me, for years I was doing CrossFit, and it was actually really fun and motivating for me to show up to a really hard workout for, again, 60 to 90 minutes in the morning. Freaking loved it, right? You show up to group class, you get to push yourself. I'm so competitive. So it was like a fun way to be competitive. Somebody already thought through the workout, what have you. And then I would immediately go into something like tax season, where I was sitting on my ass all day for 14 or 16 hours straight. And I'm like, no wonder it was so hard for my body to recover after those intense workouts, right? Because I wasn't giving it enough movement, a chance to actually repair and replenish itself later on throughout the day. So this is for all of you who already have your exercise routine dialed in. Getting in that 30 to 90-minute exercise at the gym is not enough. We need to have regular movement throughout the day as well, and for nothing else other than this reason number one, which is to increase your blood flow. Okay. All right, movement or reason number two on why exercise is so good for you that doesn't have anything to do with weight loss or getting lean. So reason number two is all around the lymphatic flow. I just touched on this briefly because it's similar to blood flow, but it's a separate system. And the reason I wanted to highlight this one separately is specifically because the lymphatic system is the main system of our immune system. So it's where all of our white blood cells are, and it's constantly on guard. It's constantly helping to protect us from the food we eat, the things that we're around. I know oftentimes our immune system gets a lot of press in, cold and flu season and things like that, which is great. But our immune system in reality is keeping us alive all day, every day. We wouldn't be able to survive unless we had that. And the really interesting thing about the lymphatic system is that it also relies on it 100% relies on the movement of our muscles, case like contractual movement, and it doesn't have anything else to pump it. And so what this can help with is things like obviously improved immunity, so it being able to get to where it needs to go, so those white blood cells can get to where it needs to go quicker in your body. It helps to reduce bloat, it helps to improve recovery, but it can also help remove toxins and do better detoxification as well. And that's important. Both of these things are very important for anyone who's under chronic stress, and or anyone who has environmental exposure to certain toxins. So, I like to point this one out too, because have you ever been like, think about if you've ever been like in a really big, heavy deadline season at work. I know for me, that was, going through tax season, going through audit season, or going through like a client's deadline, like a system go live. And right afterwards, you get sick, right? And I think a huge part of that is because for so long, we're so stressed and tense and we're not getting enough movement. And then after that, your body finally is able to relax. And so then your immune system comes back online and just is able to help fight off whatever, pathogens that you were fighting against. But being able to move again regularly throughout the day will really help boost your lymphatic flow and help support your immune system. And I think that I wish I would have known this one a lot sooner, because so much time when we are sick, we are only thinking about ways to support our immune system, like those 3 to 7 days that we're sick, and we're like, oh my goodness, I need all the vitamin C, I need all the fruit and vegetables and stuff, and we like forget that we should be supporting our immune system, or rather we could be supporting our immune system all day, all year long. And that way we're much better prepared for any time that we come across with some sort of pathogen, whether that's again within our food. Think about like just normal living things, like all the food we eat is part of nature, right? So you might pick up an apple or some berries, it's going to have bacteria on it, and that's okay. It's just that we need to make sure our body is primed and able to fight off and be efficient with the immune system that we have. So number 2 is, again, to repeat it, boosting your lymphatic flow to help your immune system be as strong as possible. Okay, cool. Reason number 3 why exercise is so good for you, that has nothing to do with calories or weight loss. This one is one of my favorite ones, is that it strengthens our neural connections, and that equates to better brain function. There are so many great studies that have come out around this. I was just reading one recently from this book called Power Up Your Brain, and it's all about the connection between our brain's underlying physical health into our mental state, and getting into, like the state of enlightenment, basically. And one thing that I found really interesting in that book, it quoted this study of, I think it was a few thousand elderly people above 70 or 80. And those people in the study who were able to participate on average in exercise of 20 minutes or more per day saw an 1,800% reduction in Parkinson's disease, which is wild when you think about, like, that's, 1,800%. That's 18 times reduction in Parkinson's just from getting regular movement for 20 times. And that wasn't even high intensity exercise, right? That was just regular movement, like walking or something comparable. And what I think, this is like one of those things for me where I'm like, when you see it, you can't unsee it. And you're like, yes, that makes perfect sense, but it's not overly obvious to start with. And what I mean by that is that, the rest of our body is controlled by our brain. So it makes sense that when we are doing some sort of intentional exercise, we're telling our body to like go sprint or simply to just go walk down the street, something, anywhere in between. Our brain, somewhere in our brain, is having to sort that out, is having to give that instruction and make that connection. So to me, it makes sense. It's like, oh, well, we're requiring our brain to be more efficient and effective. So it makes sense that it has to be well maintained. And when I'm saying it has to, I'm pointing to my head. And I love that. I think that that is so interesting. And I think that's honestly why a huge reason why so many people, I know I myself is in this camp, high performers, people who just have high demand jobs, like we rely on exercise as sort of like a therapy, if you will, right? Like a physical outlet for all the brain chatter that's going on in our brain. Or you might say to yourself, oh, when I'm running, I hear this a lot. Like when I'm running, I get a lot of good thinking done. I find a lot of clarity. And those two things are very related, right? But another one, over time, maybe not necessarily during it, but doing regular exercise also helps increase focus. It can help increase memory, and it can also help increase, cognitive resilience. So basically, overall brain function. And then similar to that, it can also help, counteract brain fog, especially during high pressure or high stress seasons. So it's a really good way for us to be able to process or utilize some of those stress hormones. And that will help basically balance our brain, some of the hormones that are going on in our blood and in our brain, to be basically be able to think more clearly. So that one was one of my favorite ones, because we so much think about in the context of health. We define it as like physical health and mental health, right? But the more I learn about the body and the brain, right? The body or the brain is part of the body. I really don't think that we should be declassifying, or segregating, rather. We should not be segregating physical health and mental health, because the two are so intertwined. And what's good for one is good for the other. So that's and reason number 3. So if anybody else is looking for more motivation to go get moving, just know that it is also helping your immediate brain function, your brain health, but also your long-term brain health too. And that's a really good one to share. If there's somebody in your family who is above that age, above 70 or 80, feel free to send this to them and have them, go read that book, Power Up Your Brain, because it is so inspiring and motivating, I think, to know that just doing, something as simple as 20 minutes of exercise can really have a significant impact on the trajectory of your health as we age and when we get into those decades in the 70s and 80s. Awesome. Okay, so reason number 4 why exercise is good for you that has nothing to do with calories or weight loss is that exercise and movement help regulate our mood and hormones. So this is talking about, the boosting of endorphins. I think all of us are familiar with, right? That feel good moment after you get a good exercise and good workout done. It also helps to increase serotonin and balance dopamine. It also helps to balance and regulate cortisol. So that's that stress hormone. Because of the reason it's a natural stress relief and it is something that our body relies on. So one thing I talk about in some of the sessions that I lead for high performing teams is around empowering stress resilience and just understanding part of the stress response that's happening within our body. And, we've all heard of this example where, how we evolved is when you see a tiger or a lion, right? That's that fight or flight response. Like our body is primed, how we evolved to basically flee or to fight back if we're in immediate danger, if our life is in danger. And it makes sense then that we would get this huge rush of adrenaline and huge rush of cortisol and all those stress hormones, because if our body really needed that, it's like going all out, right? It's like, we'll just give you all the energy we have because we need to survive this. And then, of course, we compare that to something like, well, what about that person that cut you off in traffic? Or, maybe that client that's been emailing you or that call you just got, or maybe it's your manager, somebody that you're dealing with on a more normal day-to-day basis can still create that same stress response in our body because our brain doesn't know any different. So be really aware, start to become aware of, when do you feel agitated throughout the day? When do you feel annoyed? I'm using those words instead of stress because I have found that I think the word stress, the definition of stress to me is so subjective and it's so elusive because one thing that stresses one person out won't stress the other person out. And so we really have to start to become familiar with and start to get to know our own stress response. And I like to use other describing words. So I hope that you find that's helpful. So yeah, something that I see in people is, anytime you're getting physically agitated, like maybe anger, like an anger response would be a good one, like fist clenching, teeth grinding, that would kind of be an extreme, but I have seen it in the business world. Another one would just be like, you're really worried. I see this one a lot in the high performers I work with, like people like myself. We're overachievers, we're overthinkers, and we also tend to be people pleasers. And what comes along with people pleasing is caring what other people think so much that we're constantly worrying about, how are we being perceived? Did I say that right? Did I mess up? What's going to happen if I do this? Like all these worst case scenario thoughts, right? You know how that goes. So that is one area that we have this stress response. And again, thinking of this in the context of it's happening while you're working at your desk, you're sitting down, but going back to how our bodies evolved, if we can create an outlet to physically, quote unquote, burn off those extra hormones, stress hormones, that helps our body metabolize. I use the word burn off, words burn off in air quotes, because what's really happening when we start to move our body and exercise or, walk or run after we have a burst of stress hormones is that our body is then metabolizing the stress hormones. But if all we're ever doing is, getting really angry, worried, upset, what have you, and insert your stress description word there, while we're sitting at our desk, we're not giving our body an ample opportunity to metabolize those stress hormones, and those can build up over time. So that's another great reason why regular movement throughout the day is really helpful too. And again, not just thinking about it in context, just crushing your 60-minute workout really hard in the morning and then sitting all day long at your desk is not enough. In fact, it could be working against you, which is what it did for me for years. I'll come back to that at a later time. So yes, getting regular movement throughout the day is so helpful to regulate your stress hormones, to relieve stress. It can also help boost your energy, right? So it'd be a really good time to, like after lunch, go for a short walk, even if it's only 5 minutes. And again, I'll give you some things that you can do at the end if you don't have time to go for a walk or if the weather's not, adequate for you to go outside or what have you. Okay. Everyone I know can relate to that one. And then moving into number 5. So reason number 5 why exercise is so good for you, again, that has nothing to do with calories or nothing to do with weight loss, is that it can increase bone density, which helps our health span. So it increases our long-term resilience as we age. And this one is specifically talking about resistance training or weight bearing exercises that's what is required to stimulate that bone growth and keeping and maintaining that bone density. I know Peter Attia is a really good one who talks about some really good studies and data around this. And recently I heard him say that I think it's around age 30 or so that our bone density will start to peak. And then after that, our bone density either declines or it maintains. So if you're above age 30, no worries, right? It's all downhill from here. But what we can do is still maintain our current bone density. So that way we don't have any further loss. So getting in resistance training and strength training exercises will really help improve your bone density. And I want to spend a little bit of time just kind of unpacking why this one has such importance, because I think just at surface level, we're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it sounds good for our bones to be healthy, right? Like we want our brain to be healthy. We want our bones to be healthy. Sure, why not? Okay, check, done, right? It's like, well, actually, this one has such a significant impact down the road, right? Especially for helping protect us from bone fractures, osteoporosis for especially for us women, and even injury later in life. And bring to mind like a grandparent or parent you have that's over the age of like 65, because if you can think of somebody in your mind who maybe doesn't have resistance training or has never lifted weights, you can quite easily see how maybe they're a little bit less stable. Maybe you'd worry for them if they're walking up and down simply like a ledge off of a parking lot, right? Um, or they're, going up and down stairs, like just simple day-to-day tasks that you and I may take for granted. We're like, oh yeah, that's fine now. But think of somebody in your family or in your life that's a little bit older that doesn't have that stability and doesn't have that strength. And if they were to fall and if they have low bone density, they're at a much higher risk for fractures. And believe it or not, that it's oftentimes not the actual fall or immediate injury that can lead to somebody passing. It's actually the later on hospital stay and potential infection that a lot of people elderly age can, pass away from. And that's really unfortunate. Obviously, it's sad. And more than that, it's, avoidable to a certain extent, right? And so I think that if you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, now is a great time to start building back your resistance training, building your bone density. And, even if you're not building new bone density, you're going to be able to maintain for longer. And of course, what comes along with, resistance training beyond just bone density, of course, you're getting increased strength and joint mobility and so many other intricate things that are happening within the body, because the body is just phenomenal. The more I learn about it, as you guys will see, I'm just so fascinated, honestly. I'm just so fascinated by what the body does. But I like to relate it back to those real world examples, because it honestly breaks my heart to see, some of the older people, grandparents and things in my life and in the past that I've seen. And I just, in that moment, you see them and you just go over and help them, right? You give them an arm, you help them. Or like one time I saw this older lady, such a frail woman, and she fell in the parking lot. And I wanted to just go be with her for the rest of the day, because I was like, "Are you going to be okay?" And I went over and I got her a shopping cart, and she's like, "No, no, I'm fine." Um, what is it about that generation that is just not in denial, but they're just so independent? I'm like, you just need help, okay? Accept the help. But that's a whole nother topic. What I was wanting to finish the story is that I ended up getting her a shopping cart so that she could push it around and be stable as she walked around the store. And I felt like, okay, I could at least live with good conscience that she was able to continue her day and be okay. But I think about that moment of it. You, it's kind of hard to bring to mind, right? Like every time we go to the gym, I'm not thinking about, oh, that one time I'm going to fall 40 years from now. No, but what we're doing is we're saying, hey, we see these people in our life and we want to be the best that we can be. So that way, when we get to that age, we can be as strong as possible. And I think if everyone thought that way, we collectively would just be a lot more in tune with with our bodies. We'd be a lot stronger. We'd be a lot more resilient as we age, and we'd have a lot less risk of injury as we age. So it's kind of like that, put on your your oxygen mask first kind of a thing, where I want to help everyone. But at the end of the day, I know the thing I need to do most is just make sure I'm looking out for myself. And I think if each of us did that, we would be a better example and more motivating for the people around us. Cause I think you'd be surprised. It's like if you were to start, talking about like, let's say, for example, you're between the ages of 30 and like 55, right? And so you probably have a parent who's older, who's aging. And if you were to start talking about why you're picking up resistance training, why you're doing some banded work, why you do your weightlifting, and just saying, hey, I'm even concerned about my own bone density, my own, aging as I get older, and just talk to your parents or talk to your grandparents about it. You might be surprised to know that they probably don't know much about it. That's one thing that I have found. Um, because so much new science has come out recently, and oftentimes is the case is that past a certain age, I think people just accept aging, and that's a big theme that we'll dive further into on future topics. But really, this bone density, because it relates to the older generation, or not even just the older generation, it relates to when we are going to be in our 70s, 80s, 90s. It's so important to just talk about and to socialize it within your family, because everyone needs it, and it can really have a huge impact. Like, the last thing I'll kind of say on this is, imagine if you incorporating resistance training now, even just twice a week, and that could be weights at the gym. It could be just using resistance bands. It could be some sort of fun activity that you like to do. But if you were to do that, twice a week now, and that would help prevent your own risk of falling, fracture, and hospitalization, in 30 years from now, like, would it be worth it? Right. I think, to me, the answer is definitely yes, because there's so many other benefits that come from it. But I just want to empower you that, your actions and habits today really do create and build your health in the future. Okay. So hopefully you found these 5 reasons as to why exercise and movement is good for you, enlightening and motivating, and, just giving you more ammunition in your pocket, to keep moving and to keep doing what you're doing. And again, so let's kind of shift gears too, because again, this isn't about hitting the exercise super intense for 30 to 60 minutes in the morning and then just sitting all day long. We actually want to avoid that. So here's what we can do. When we are sitting at our desk, something super simple that you can do is simply just get up and do 10 air squats, and do that a couple times throughout the day. And what you want to do while you're doing this is really focus on the mind muscle connection. And what that's going to allow you to do is to reinvigorate your brain. Like, if you've just been working on a heavy task, like a hard task, or you've been really stressed, this will really help, because you're getting the muscle contraction, you're getting that brain muscle connection to help with that brain neural stimulation that I was talking about before. And so doing 10 air squats is something that you can do anywhere, anytime, pretty much in any outfit. Although I'd be mindful, ladies, if you're wearing heels, you might want to take the heels off first before you go ahead and do air squats. And be safe wherever you are. But, you could do a couple rounds of that. You could do, 2 or 3 sets of that right after lunch, maybe one set after a break, and then one set right when you're winding down your day. And there's 50 more air squats that you just got throughout the day. Another one that I really like to do, if you are able to, again, with your outfit and location depending, is push-ups, because it's such a great full, frontal body. You're activating your core, you're straightening your legs, you're getting in that shoulder stability and mobility by being able to do the push-ups. So aiming for, again, 5 to 10 push-ups at a time, depending on your physical ability, and do that several times per day is a really, really good one. I also like to combine that one with some stretching, doing some like down dog. I understand too, that one may not be as appropriate if you're at the office, especially if you're wearing, I'm thinking of like business shoes, you don't want to crease. So if that's the case, what you could do is do standing push-ups against the wall. So that way you're not like putting your hand on like the client's floor. But if they have a office that you can go into, or if they have one of those just in time little phone booths, you can just go over there. So yeah, doing some push-ups or doing some wall push-ups would be a great secondary workout. And then I would say above that, one of my all-time favorite ones, especially for stress relief, and you can literally do this anywhere, is just heel stomps. And why I really like this one is because what you're going to do is you're going to just stand up straight and then lift up your heels, and then just let them fall heavy on the ground. So that way you're getting sort of this like stomping feeling, and it's just letting out the tension in your body. And I really like it because when you kind of just release the tension in your shoulders, it also shakes out your shoulders, and it just feels really good. It's like, I don't know about you, but I carry all of my stress like right on the top of my shoulders. And so also too, we're sitting like T-Rex style at our desk too, right? So just being in that full standing position with your arms down by your sides, heel stomp, and then the motion is carrying through your shoulders is just such a good stress reliever. And it's just a good movement in terms of, again, getting in the standing position. And, feel free to combine all of those too. And the reason why I'm giving you some of these, just super simple ones is because then you can do them anywhere. It's really easy to start doing. And oftentimes I find if I'm like, hey, I'm just going to do this for 1 minute or 2 minutes between a meeting, there I'm off to the races running and I'm like doing 5 more exercises. So if you're like me and you want even more exercises, shout out to me. You can reach me on LinkedIn at Kaitlin Borncamp, and I'll give you tons of more desk workouts that you can do on your own. But for now, those should be the 3 that you can do anywhere, anytime. That's air squats, push-ups, and heel stomps. And that will really help improve all the circulation, your brain function throughout the day, all the things that we chatted about in today's session. So I hope you found that helpful. And as always, I have 2 quick asks before you go. If you enjoyed this episode, I would love for you to leave a 5-star review. It helps me so much. It helps me reach more people who need this. And second, if you can think of just one person who could benefit from hearing the message about what I talked about today, please go ahead and send them this episode, because you never know. You might just be the spark that helps them create real change. And how cool is that? All right. Until next time, my friends, stay healthy. Just a reminder that the information shared on this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended to be medical advice. It should not be used to treat, diagnose, or cure any medical condition. Always consult your physician or qualified healthcare provider before making changes to your health regimen or medications. Kaitlin Borncamp and Health Supply LLC, DBA Feel Great with Kait, disclaim any liability for outcomes resulting from the use of this content.